What would you think if I told you that the most dangerous person in any room isn't the loudest, angriest, or most aggressive, but the quietest one who's been watching, learning, and absorbing everything for years? That behind every gentle soul who seems broken lies a psychological powerhouse waiting to be awakened? Modern psychology has uncovered something extraordinary about highly sensitive people, those we call empaths. For decades, society has painted them as fragile, emotional, too soft for this harsh world. But recent research in emotional intelligence and behavioral psychology reveals a startling truth. Empaths aren't weak. They're psychological warriors in disguise, operating with capabilities most people can't even comprehend. The transformation happens in a moment. One betrayal too many. One manipulation that finally breaks through their endless capacity for forgiveness. And suddenly, the person everyone thought they could walk all over becomes untouchable. Not through cruelty, not through revenge, but through something far more powerful: complete psychological awareness. This isn't a story about becoming cold or hard. This is about what happens when someone with extraordinary emotional intelligence finally stops apologizing for seeing what others can't see, feeling what others refuse to feel, and knowing what others are too unconscious to understand. Empaths possess what psychologists call hypervigilant emotional processing, the ability to read microexpressions, energy shifts, and behavioral patterns with startling accuracy. While others are having surface conversations, empaths are simultaneously processing tone, body language, what's not being said, and the emotions swirling beneath every interaction. But here's what society never tells them: this isn't a burden. It's a superpower. Think about it. Empaths can walk into a room and instantly sense the tension between two people who are pretending everything is fine. They can predict relationship outcomes months before the people involved see the warning signs. They can identify manipulation tactics before they're fully formed and spot authentic people in a crowd of performers. Yet instead of being celebrated for these extraordinary abilities, they're often told they're too sensitive, overthinking, or making things up. They learn to doubt their perceptions, to apologize for their insights, to dim their awareness to make others comfortable. The tragic irony is that empaths often become victims not because they can't see danger coming, but because they've been conditioned to ignore what they see. They observe the red flags, feel the manipulation, sense the dishonesty, but they've been taught that acknowledging these perceptions makes them negative or judgmental. What most people don't realize is that empaths never forget anything. Every slight, every manipulation, every broken promise gets filed away in their emotional database. They remember not just what happened, but how it felt, why it happened, and what patterns led to it. This isn't vindictive record-keeping. It's psychological pattern recognition operating at the highest level. Empaths unconsciously catalog human behavior because their survival depends on understanding the emotional landscape around them. They become walking libraries of human psychology, storing detailed information about everyone they encounter. They know exactly which words trigger their partner's defensiveness. They understand precisely how their family members manipulate situations to their advantage. They can predict with uncanny accuracy how different people will respond to various scenarios. But they've been taught that using this knowledge makes them manipulative, so they remain silent, allowing others to repeat harmful patterns indefinitely. The most extraordinary part is their accuracy rate. While average people struggle to read basic emotional cues, empaths achieve near-perfect accuracy in understanding others' motivations, fears, and desires. They don't need years of psychology training to understand human nature. They've been living it, breathing it, studying it every day of their lives. Every empath has a moment, usually triggered by profound betrayal, when they stop protecting others from the truth they see. It might be discovering a partner's infidelity they felt coming for months. It could be realizing a friend has been systematically undermining them while playing the supportive role. Or it might be the moment they understand their family has been using their empathy as a weapon against them. The transformation isn't gradual. It's instant and complete. One day, they're explaining away red flags and making excuses for others' behavior. The next day, they're speaking truth with surgical precision, naming patterns others didn't even realize they were following, and setting boundaries that feel immovable. This isn't an emotional breakdown. It's an emotional breakthrough. The moment when years of suppressed awareness finally gets permission to exist. What makes this transformation so powerful is its calm intensity. People expect empaths to explode with emotion when they finally reach their limit. Instead, they become unnaturally still, almost clinical in their clarity. They don't attack or rage. They simply begin telling the truth about what they've observed, what they've felt, and what they now understand about the people around them. The effect is more devastating than any emotional outburst could be. When someone who has seen your every pattern, absorbed your every manipulation, and understood your deepest wounds finally speaks up, there's nowhere to hide. They don't need to be cruel because the truth itself is enough. What happens next is what psychologists call conscious boundary formation. The empath's ability to protect their energy becomes as sophisticated as their ability to read others. They develop what can only be described as psychological immunity to manipulation. They can spot gaslighting attempts before they're fully formed. They recognize love-bombing patterns within days rather than months. They sense emotional vampires from across the room and politely but firmly limit access to their energy. Most importantly, they trust their perceptions absolutely, no longer seeking external validation for what they intuitively know. This doesn't make them cold or disconnected. If anything, they become more loving, but selectively so. They pour their extraordinary capacity for care into people who genuinely deserve and reciprocate it, while maintaining clear boundaries with those who don't. The transformation creates what researchers call strategic empathy, the ability to feel deeply while choosing consciously where that feeling goes. They can still sense everyone's emotions, but they no longer feel responsible for managing those emotions. They can still see others' pain, but they no longer feel obligated to fix it at their own expense. When an empath awakens to their full psychological power, the effects extend far beyond their personal transformation. Their clarity forces everyone around them to either evolve or reveal their true nature. Family systems that relied on the empath's silence suddenly face uncomfortable truths. Relationships built on one-sided emotional labor collapse when the empath stops overfunctioning. Friends who took advantage of their endless patience find themselves dealing with someone who no longer tolerates disrespect. The awakened empath becomes like a mirror, reflecting back the authentic energy others bring to them. Manipulative people feel exposed and uncomfortable, unable to operate their usual psychological games. Meanwhile, genuinely loving people feel safer and more seen than ever before. This creates what psychologists observe as authentic relationship sorting. The empath's life naturally organizes itself around people who can match their new level of emotional honesty and mutual respect. Toxic relationships either heal through genuine change or end through natural consequences. The most remarkable aspect is how little active work the awakened empath has to do. They don't need to confront every toxic person or explicitly call out every manipulation. Their mere presence, their refusal to enable dysfunction, and their insistence on authentic connection does the work for them. The awakened empath masters what researchers call emotional sovereignty, the ability to feel everything while being controlled by nothing. They maintain their extraordinary sensitivity while developing unshakable inner stability. They learn to distinguish between their emotions and others' emotions, no longer unconsciously absorbing every feeling in their environment. They develop techniques for processing intense emotions quickly and completely, preventing the emotional buildup that once left them overwhelmed and exhausted. Most importantly, they learn to use their emotional intelligence strategically. They can read a room and know exactly how to navigate complex social dynamics. They understand people's motivations so clearly that they can influence outcomes simply by knowing which truths to share and when to share them. This isn't manipulation, it's conscious participation in the emotional ecosystem. Instead of being victims of others' unconscious patterns, they become skilled navigators of human psychology, able to create healthier dynamics wherever they go. The fully awakened empath embodies what psychologists call integrated sensitivity, the marriage of extraordinary emotional perception with unshakable personal boundaries. They become individuals who can love deeply without losing themselves, care profoundly without enabling dysfunction, and feel everything while being broken by nothing. Their transformation serves as inspiration for other sensitive souls who are still trapped in cycles of overgiving and underreceiving. They become living proof that empathy and strength aren't opposites. They're synergistic powers that create unstoppable psychological resilience. The awakened empath represents humanity's emotional evolution. People who can process complex feelings without being overwhelmed by them, who can navigate relationships with both heart and wisdom, who can create healing without sacrificing their own well-being. What emerges from this transformation is a new understanding of what it means to be highly sensitive in a disconnected world. The awakened empath doesn't need to become less empathetic to protect themselves. They need to become more consciously empathetic, feeling with intention rather than compulsion, loving with wisdom rather than weakness. They discover that their sensitivity was never the problem. The problem was how they were taught to express and protect it. When empaths learn to honor their perceptions, trust their feelings, and maintain their boundaries, they become forces of nature, individuals capable of creating profound healing and positive change wherever they go. The awakened empath doesn't just heal themselves. They become healers of systems, relationships, and communities. Their presence elevates everyone around them because they model what healthy emotional intelligence looks like in action. The daily life of an awakened empath looks different from their previous existence. They no longer dread social situations because they know how to protect their energy. They no longer question their perceptions because they've learned to trust their incredible accuracy. They no longer sacrifice their needs for others' comfort because they understand that enabling dysfunction helps no one. Instead, they move through the world with calm confidence, loving deeply but wisely, seeing clearly but without judgment, feeling everything while being controlled by nothing. They become the kind of person they once needed, someone who validates the reality of sensitive souls while modeling how to transform sensitivity into strength. Their relationships improve dramatically because they attract people who can match their level of emotional authenticity. Their work becomes more fulfilling because they choose environments that honor their gifts rather than exploit them. Their entire life reorganizes around supporting their true nature rather than suppressing it. The awakening of empaths represents more than individual transformation. It signals a shift in human consciousness toward greater emotional intelligence and authentic connection. As more sensitive souls learn to embrace their gifts rather than apologize for them, they create ripples of change that spread throughout their communities. They raise emotionally intelligent children who trust their feelings from the start. They create workplaces where emotional awareness is valued alongside technical skills. They form relationships based on mutual respect rather than unconscious patterns of dominance and submission. The awakened empath becomes a bridge between the old paradigm of emotional suppression and the new paradigm of conscious feeling. They prove that sensitivity and strength can coexist, that empathy and boundaries are complementary forces, that feeling deeply doesn't mean suffering endlessly. Every empath eventually faces a choice: remain in the familiar pattern of overgiving and underreceiving, or step into the full power of their emotional intelligence. The betrayals, disappointments, and wake-up calls aren't punishments. They're invitations to transformation. The path of awakening isn't always comfortable, but it leads to something extraordinary. A life where your greatest sensitivity becomes your greatest strength, where your ability to feel becomes your ability to heal, where your empathy transforms from a burden into a superpower. The world needs awakened empaths now more than ever. Not broken souls who apologize for their gifts, but conscious warriors who wield their sensitivity with wisdom, their empathy with boundaries, their love with strength. The choice is yours. You can continue absorbing others' dysfunction while dimming your own light, or you can step into the fullness of who you were always meant to be, an empathic force of nature who changes the world simply by refusing to dim their extraordinary gifts. The transformation awaits. The only question is whether you're ready to stop being a victim of your sensitivity and start being its master. Because when empaths awaken to their true power, they don't just change their own lives. They change the world around them, one authentic connection at a time. Your awakening isn't just personal, it's revolutionary. And the world is waiting for your unique brand of conscious empathy to help heal what's been broken for far too long.